Are your people working hard but not reaching their full potential? The problem is not effort, it is development. At the Modern Observer Group, we transform workforce development into real performance. Our human-centered achievement programs help your team think better, communicate stronger, and execute at a higher level. That means higher employee engagement, stronger leadership, and measurable results across your organization. If you want a workforce that performs, leads, and delivers, it is time to invest in your people. Visit modernobserver.com and discover how the Modern Observer Group helps you build a workforce that wins.
Hello, and welcome to the Success Showcase, the podcast that helps you succeed in your business life and career. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin from the Modern Observer Group, and with me, as always, is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how you doing this week?
I'm doing great. How about you, Eric?
I'm doing fantastic. We are now in August, and wow, we have had heat waves around this country that makes it feel like August. It's,
Yeah, this year we've had a whole lot of rain this year. We've had close to record-setting quantities of rain for the month of July that just ended in certain parts of the state. They track it up here at the airport, and in the last 150 years or whatever, or something like that, I think it was like the fourth or fifth most rainiest July that we had. And down in Bridgeport, which is in southern Connecticut, I think it was like number 2. So it's like every single week around this time of the week, we have storms that just hang around for a few days, and on various areas just dump a whole bunch of water.
And it's been this way all over the country. We've had a heat dome just settle over most of the country. We've had massive rains in California, massive rains along the Gulf. It really has been a chaotic summer weather-wise. And, you mentioned that they track the weather at the airport. And all I ever think of when I see them talk about that on the news is George Carlin doing the hippy-dippy weatherman. And he says, the temperature is 72 degrees at the airport. And I don't know why anybody would care, because nobody lives at the airport.
Good old George. He was
yes,
great.
It's just, this is one of those things. They put the weather stations there because they had room. And now it doesn't even make any sense anymore, because now weather stations are so small, they can fit basically anywhere.
No, absolutely. Yeah, and the airport in Connecticut is 20 minutes north of Hartford, but that's where Hartford gets its data. So,
right.
So,
and it's like that all over the country. So, they'll make and how many times have you watched a weather report and actually said, just look out the window, because it doesn't bear any resemblance to what they're saying on the news. Why? Well, because when a weatherman gives his forecast, he's looking at he or she is looking at a specific data set that may or may not actually be resembling what's going on outside. And it's that lack of detail that makes people go, oh, it's got to be easy to be a weatherman. You don't even have to be right most of the time. Well, this is what we're talking about today. It's the importance of paying attention to details and the pursuit of quality in whatever you do. And this has been an ongoing theme. If you go back through our last few episodes, we've talked about slowing down. We've talked about focus, and it's all tied in, because what you really want is to be paying attention to the details of what you're doing in order to increase the quality. Now, of course, why do you want to increase quality? Well, there's a couple of really good reasons. Number one is it increases your value. If you're turning out higher quality work, that work is worth more. And you can see that if you're a solopreneur or a business owner, you see that reflected in your prices. People are willing to pay more for quality. If you work for somebody, you can bring that up in terms of salary negotiations, because as you become known as someone that always puts out quality, that's something that stands out. And more, quality is actually becoming a rare commodity. And it shows up in little ways over and over again. Sometimes we notice, sometimes we don't. I was actually reading a story the other day, and this woman walks into an apartment and kicks off her sneakers at the door and walks in her socks. And then 2 paragraphs later, her sneakers are squeaking across the floor, except she left them at the door a couple paragraphs back. And then a few paragraphs after that, she's back in her socks. Because obviously the writer lost track of where he had taken the character.
Yeah.
And this is not uncommon, but it's something we should strive to avoid.
Yeah, I mean, basically, for some reason, it just made me think of my crazy mind thing. Instead of having artificial intelligence, she had an artificial roommate.
Yes.
Just put on the shoes and went there. But yeah, I mean, it's so important to do that. I mean, we talked about, as far as key strategies to quality work. We've talked about this many times, but working off of a checklist that has the step-by-step requirements, so you got everything done, and obviously you take a look at those with your employees or whatever to make sure that they're accurate. Removing distractions, which we talk about every time we talk about something like this, turning off cell phones and so on and so forth and everything else, and just concentrating on the work. Slowing down, taking extra time during the initial steps rather than rushing through and having to correct yourself later, like you're talking about. And then very important, as you first brought up, double checking your work, review the tasks so they don't come back to bite you. But I mean, if you just use those checklists, cutting down on distractions, slowing down, and double checking your work, you're really on your way to doing quality work. So obviously a lot of strategizing and things like that too. But if you want to go through the process, that's what it is.
Absolutely. The checklist is the first step. If you put down all of the steps that you're going to have to follow, and don't try to remember them, but actually write them down. If you want to put it in a notebook, that's great. You want to use a checklist or a to-do list program on your computer, that's fine. You want to use a spreadsheet, great. However it works for you. But the idea is to get those steps out of your head. The more you're trying to remember, the more chances there are that you are going to make a mistake. Also, don't just put the steps down. Write down notes. When you're having a meeting with someone else who's working on the project, with a boss, with a client, whoever it is, when you're discussing the project, write it down. Don't assume you're going to remember. The fact of the matter is, people's memory is not nearly as good as we assume it is. Now, I spent a number of years as an auxiliary police officer with the New York Police Department. And one of the first things that they taught us was that eyewitness accounts are notoriously inaccurate. And if you talk to 4 or 5 people, you're going to get 4 or 5 different accounts. None of them are lying about it. They're all telling you exactly what they remember. But people's memory is not perfect. It's colored by what we happen to be focusing on, past experience. And so we tend to forget things. So the more you can write down, the higher quality you'll be able to turn out. And it's also important to ask questions. I'm guilty of this many times. I will write down notes, and then I'll go back to them a few days later, and I did not write enough detail for me to remember exactly what I was referring to. So I will have to go back and call or email the person I was talking to and get clarification. There's nothing wrong with that. People start going, oh, well, then they'll think I'm stupid. They'll think I wasn't paying attention. No, they'll think you're human. So reach out and get clarification whenever you need it.
No, and whoever you're dealing with is going to appreciate that too, because they're going to know that you really are caring about what's going on rather than just going through the motions with them. It's so important for you to do that as part of your daily practice and your work practice and so on, because it brings you credibility, number one, but it also keeps you sharper too. I mean, that's one of those habits on your checklist that you have to do as far as what you're doing is write it down, ask questions for clarification and so on and so forth. We talked about communication and making sure that the people you're talking with understand what you're talking about. And if not, encourage them to bring something up rather than having people sit there and keep things in and all of a sudden come back to you later on because they didn't understand. And that's a lose-lose for both of you.
Exactly. The more times if you guess at something, the more times you do, the more times you're probably going to have to do something over again. And I want to touch base. You just said a very important word of why you want to strive for higher quality, and it's credibility. When you're making a mistake, it doesn't matter if the mistake is important or not, it diminishes your credibility. And the perfect example was I got a phone call the other day. Turned out it was a spam call. Now, I didn't bother listening to the entire message that they left because once they got past the second line, I went, well, even if this isn't spam, these are not people I want to deal with. And the reason was they opened the call with, good afternoon. I'm calling you first thing because I want to get this to you before your day piles up. Okay, so first of all, they're saying good afternoon, and then they're saying they're calling first thing in the morning. The call actually came in at 20 to 8 at night. So all of that was immediately wrong. It's like, okay, this is not somebody, even if this isn't spam, this is not somebody I want to deal with, and never bothered listening to the rest of the message. So you don't want people tuning out your message before you even get to it because you've made mistakes because you were not paying attention.
Yeah,
So
and I'm thinking I think there's a whole lot of automatically generated things out there too. I mean, I'm getting calls all the time about this and that and so on and so forth, business lines of credit, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And it has absolutely nothing to do with what I'm doing and so on and so forth. So I mean, I just automatically block it and throw it to spam and report it.
Yep.
And if I answer my phone a couple times a day, that's a lot because that's mostly what I'm getting these days. It's just text messages and phone messages like that.
Yes, there is a lot of that. And that also brings up an important point. So many of us are using AI more and more. AI does not guarantee quality. And in fact, very often it's a detriment to quality because the person using it is turning their brain off, letting AI do the work, and they're not paying attention to what's coming out of it. I have watched a number of videos lately that have gone across social media, and a lot of them talk about history, a lot of them talk about pop culture, but they're all narrated by an AI voice. And you've probably heard a number of these. You've come to recognize the voice as AI, but it drives me up the wall when whoever's putting together the video did not bother to double check that AI is pronouncing words and names properly. Sometimes if you're using AI for narration, you have to spell things out phonetically for it Don't just let it make these mistakes. And then I saw another video that was obviously fully generated by AI, talking about companies from the 1980s that no longer exist. And the second company on the list was Atari. Well, guess what? Atari still exists. They're still turning out products. And yet, for some reason, this AI went, oh, well, I haven't heard of them lately. They must not exist. So using AI is a great tool, but you cannot rely on it to generate quality. You have to double check. If you do the work, you double check it. If you have AI do the work, you double check it. Another big problem is where people are getting information from. I've seen this mostly in the field of nutrition, but I will see facts posted on social media that all it takes is a quick Google search to find out this is not true. And yet people are just assuming that, oh, somebody said it, I trust that person, it must be right. If you're putting together a project and you are responsible for that project, you need to double check every fact, every assumption. Check your math, check your spelling. You have to pay attention to all the details. There is a reason that people for years, for decades, if not centuries at this point, have said, I just need to cross the T's and dot the I's. It's because they're paying attention to the details. They're making sure everything is right. And sometimes, in fact, most times, it's best if you have a second set of eyes go over your work. I had this just the other day. Bunch of forms that had to be filled out. I was given a copy of the forms. I didn't have to fill the forms out, but I was given a copy of the forms. I went to file them, took a quick look through, and found there was a very important detail missing because the person that was filling it out missed a blank, did not see that that was where they needed to put information. These things happen, especially when you rush. So you need to focus on details. And sometimes you need to focus a little more than you usually do. Very often, if you're going through pages and pages of text, it might not be enough to just read through it. You might want to take a magnifying glass to go through it. This way you make sure you're focused on a small area of the page and you're checking the details in that area step by step.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, core ideas for quality. I mean, we talked about basically the checklist and so on and so forth. But the most important thing, and it always has been, always will be, is the customer is number one. So learning what people want and making sure your work meets or beats their goals is really, really the most important thing. And one of the things that AI or whatever is going on these days always happens anytime you're dealing with anybody is that drives me up a tree is within 2 or 3 minutes, I get a survey form where they want me to go in there and rate the technician or the service man and so on and so forth and what the experience was and so on and so forth. That's not customer first. That's company feedback and so on and so forth that they're going to throw into some AI thing and put it in a ranking or something like that. And even if it's a really good friend of mine that's doing that with that automatic thing, I never fill one of those things out. I mean, automation is great in a lot of ways, but those kind of things are really, really tough. And the bottom line is, if you have a good experience with a customer and the person who's taking care of you calls you to ask how they did and so on and so forth, that is so, so important because that's one thing as a customer that you're going to remember. And you and I both being networkers, what that will lead to is referrals for that person who took care of you to other people that you know. Because basically what referrals are all about is referring somebody that you know and trust to somebody that you care about. And that does not happen in the AI world or the automated whatever world, even if they're doing a great job. It's just automatic. You throw up the survey afterwards and people want to hear about the experience. And I'm sorry, time is valuable to me and I don't need to do that kind of stuff.
Yes, time is valuable. And that's actually another reason you want to be paying attention to the details, because it is a lot faster to get things done when you're paying attention to those details than it is to find the mistake later and have to go back and fix it. So you're saving yourself time and effort by putting that focus in right from the beginning. Now, we've been talking a lot about processes and how to get to quality. And we talked a little bit about why you want to get to quality. But there's another factor to all of this, and it's the mindset of quality. And this sounds a little counterintuitive, but one of the things you want to do when you're focusing on quality is actually raise your standards. It sounds easier. You'll meet expectations if you lower the standards and get everybody to agree on that. But you will have a better result if you raise your standards rather than lowering them. If you think it's something that what you're working on is not going to meet, figure out how to meet those higher standards. Don't lower the bar. You want to keep the bar high. Even if you don't meet it, because it's a high bar, you're producing a higher quality work, even if you get close, than you would be if you lowered the bar and hit the expectations. And this has become a big problem in large institutions and in life in general, quite frankly. There was an announcement a couple of years ago from University of California at Berkeley. University of California has a policy that if you are a resident of California and you graduate from a California high school, you can go to University of California automatically. Basically, all you have to do is fill in an application. There's no judgment. It's you went to a California school, you're in. Well, UC Berkeley found that a lot of the students they were getting from the California school system did not meet their standards, and they had to put them in remedial reading and remedial English and math classes. Well, for some reason, UC Berkeley a few years ago made the announcement that they didn't want to do this anymore. So instead of working with California public schools to make their education system better, they simply said, you know what, we're not going to require that anymore. We're just going to put these kids into classes without the remedial. Well, guess how many of those students really did well? Lowering the bar doesn't work. It becomes a race to the bottom, and you become known, instead of an institution or a person that produces quality, you then become known as a place that things are good enough. Well, think about it from the customer standpoint. Are you going to go to a business that the result is going to be good enough? Or are you going to go somewhere where they're standing on their quality, where they're pushing the fact that what they do is the highest quality? Which are you going to spend money on?
Yeah, I mean, basically, it comes down to, in life and in the business world, gets back to the old golden rule. If you can teach people to just do unto others as you would have them do unto you, I mean, you're a consumer, but you're also helping people out. If you just live that, that's going to conquer 90% of this problem for you, because we're so bombarded with all the different technical stuff going on and so on and so forth, that this whole world is complicated. And, you know, they used to say we had 60,000 thoughts in our head a day. Maybe we got 120,000 now because of all that stuff that we're bombarded with. But if you just get back to simplicity, people like dealing with people that they know and trust. And in order to be trusted, you have to be totally genuine and doing it for the other person, regardless of what's going to happen to you as a result of that. Because the bottom line is, it's going to come back to you in a positive way, one way or another, just by being that. And for those of you folks out there who are worried about all the technical lists and all the got to make money this, got to get it done this, and so on and so forth. And once you get it done and you have a few times succeeding, but it comes back to you and you're not satisfied and you're not happy with what's going on, take a look at how you do things and how you did things. And maybe if you change it around a little bit to get the people more involved and develop the relationships that way, it's so, so important. Obviously, I've been doing this for a whole lot of years. So have you. And we've gone through the whole thing where it was just every once in a while, a crank phone call over the dial-up thing to where we are right now. But the most important thing is really the customer comes first, the relationship comes first. And the bottom line is, if that's the way you work, you're going to feel a whole lot better about it yourself too. And benefits are going to come from that, both for the person you're dealing with and yourself too, because you'll know you're doing it right.
Absolutely. And, these are not new concepts that we're talking about. Bob Berg, who was the author of the Go Giver series and has been a guest on our podcast, one of the rules he put forward in his first Go Giver book was give more in value than you receive in compensation. Grant Cardone, who we haven't gotten him on the show yet, I'm working on that, but we've talked about his work for years. He has always said in all of his books, don't underpromise and overdeliver, overpromise and overdeliver. It's all about giving more. We just a few years ago went through a period in the economy where there was a big trend called quiet quitting. And what this was people saying, you know what, I'm only going to do as much as I'm paid for. Well, guess what? A lot of those folks are out of work now because while they were saying, well, my job is not about my self-worth, people had to point out to them, no, your job is about your salary. And if you're not delivering, you're not going to get paid. So there are always benefits to delivering higher quality, to over-delivering, and to giving value. That's what you want to be known for. So take a step back, pay attention to the details, and over-deliver on quality. We are just about out of time for today. So, Chip, what do you think the big takeaway is for our listeners?
Yeah. Well, obviously, what this is all about, noticing small elements, working with precision, stopping errors before they happen, that's so, so important. But what we were just talking about at the end is raising the bar, making the bar higher, offering value, a mindset of quality. If you do that and you do all these things as far as dotting the I's and crossing the T's with the checklists, making the customer first, and double checking your work, following up, things are going to work out good for you. The first thing you got to start with is your commitment to yourself in the mirror, and then put all of these things that we talked about to work. And if you can do that, you're going to be successful, and you're also going to be very happy, as are the people that you're dealing with.
Yes, they will. And, just to give an example of how important quality is, there are so many management techniques that are completely based on delivering quality. Six Sigma is all about ensuring quality. TQM stands for Total Quality Management. Kaizen is all about making sure the finished product is a quality product. People have been striving for quality from the dawn of time. Now it's your turn. Look at what you're doing, whether it's in your life, your career, your business. See where you can improve the quality of what you're doing. Maybe it's taking a couple extra minutes when you make dinner to slice something up a little better, or to better monitor the temperature. Maybe it's something at work where you need more information You need to go get it before you start the project. Maybe it's that you need better communications. Find where the lapses are and fill them in to ensure higher quality. You'll appreciate it. The people you're working with will appreciate it. And the other people you're dealing with will appreciate it. Quality is the bottom line. Or actually, to show my age, to pull an old Ford commercial when they were trying to rebuild the whole company. Quality is job one. You've been listening to the Success Showcase. Remember to like and subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen. And of course, you can catch every episode at xvadio.com, the Apple Podcast app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. We'll see you then.